Riddick and the Lauren Riddick team, and here with our Homes and Loans podcast, making a difference through collaboration and positive difference that is. And I'm extremely excited about my very dear friend and 1987 WB alumni class of 1987 graduate with me. And man, Kelly Tanner, it is great to have you today, my friend.
It's great to be here.
You're
Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, you're my brother, man. I guess now I'm an Alcoa / Middle Settlements boy, and I got a Fairview fella here, so.
Fairview Elementary still going strong. School's still clucking.
Well, folks, let me tell you, this man needs no introduction, but I want to make sure you understand. Kelly Tanner is not only a world class friend and gentleman, but he is absolutely one of the top attorneys in the nation, quite frankly. And his practice is far-ranging, criminal defense. He protects the rights of us. If we get in an auto accident, anything like that. I mean, he's helped my family with some estate planning and different things from my mom and dad, and just a great friend. And we're going to get into some of that. But Kelly's got a very unique story, as I remember and recall. And Kelly, I'd love for you to fill in any gaps I've got there, bud. And I can already tell you will get on to me for bragging on you, but you deserve it. And Kelly and I go way back. Like I said, graduated together, and Kelly has a unique story. And one of the things is that he was in law enforcement for how long, Kelly? How long were you in law enforcement?
Over 20 years.
Yeah, over 20 years in law enforcement, and then decided that he would go and represent folks and became an attorney, and has helped so many people. And I'm just proud to call him my friend. And Kelly, what we do is we get in and we got basically 3 segments, and the first segment's always a good thing, and it's the kind of the beginning of, hey, who's Kelly? I know that a beautiful wife, Chantel, and you've got 2 beautiful daughters. And I think at the end of the month you're joining the 55 club. You're joining me, so
I am. Yeah,
we're getting more vintage, not older, like Mom's song is.
Right. Wiser and slow. Like that.
All that, man. But just tell us a little bit about. I mean, we've had some stories talking about used to dealing tobacco and working the farm and how you come up. But let's talk a little bit about the early days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a native of Maryville, so you know that I've been here. This has always been my home, always will be. I've worked other places in different spots around the country, but ultimately this is where I've always laid my head. So this is where I want to. When my time's up, I want it to be here. But yeah, I grew up. Really had kind of a unique childhood. I had my father's side of the family were in businesses. They worked for themselves. So I was exposed to the business part of that, and retail, restaurants, and from early age, grew up around doing stuff like that. And when I could, when they let me working in it. And then my mother's side of the family, I call them Mama and Papa. They had a farm. They were country folks, and both sides were Depression era people. So I grew up with a foot on either side of the fence. And like you said, they raised tobacco and corn and no livestock really, but lots and lots of things like that. So I spent my summers really wearing 2 different hats, and it imparted a lot of both of their lifestyles into mine. So I've sort of unwittingly, I've been molded into something that kind of mirrors that. And for our high school days, when I was a young man, a youngster, all I ever wanted to be was going to medicine. I wanted to be a doctor. And so I was just hard driving with that. And then I started hanging around when I was going to college. Went to ETSU as well.
That's right.
When I was going to college, I had occasion to start hanging around some cops, and I was like, that might be kind of interesting. And the more I hung around them, it's a very eclectic mix. I know I really liked it. I enjoyed it. And then when I decided I was going to do it, I became boasting, but I was pretty good at it. And so I made a career out of it and fed my family. And I worked some over in Blount County, and then I went to the Knoxville Police Department. I spent the majority of my career over there, and then just had sort of a calling one night. And we won't go into that.
And you made it into leadership. You were running with the squads.
I was a supervisor. Yeah, I was a middling supervisor. I was a sergeant, so I had the honor of leading lots of different men, to do those jobs and the like. But just had this calling one night when I was working. I was just driving around with myself. A lot of lonely times, you listen to the radio or whatever, patrol, try to tamp down some crime. And law enforcement's really reactive in large part. We don't know what we prevent from that facet. But I just had this calling to go to law school. And
so let me ask you this, before we get too deep into that direction, when you think about the farm life, back in the day, I know, like for me, it's like I used to tell my dad, like, Dad, I love you. The only way I would do this, a lot of times when people think when you bale hay, when you're stacking hay, it's the hottest of the summer. Nasty work. And you think, well, it's hot, so you're going to wear shorts and t-shirts or no shirt. No.
You will once, won't you?
Yeah. But you're wearing pants, long sleeve, your hat, it's different. But do you have any, and I remember Tyson McClanahan, Coach McClanahan, me and Jason Merritt, long and the short of it is he worked us like government mules, and our pay was 6 crystals, a small fry and a Coke, and $5.
Yeah.
And so it puts in perspective when things get rougher. But is there any stories that you think of back in the day where you just felt like, man, it's hard work, and what I'm doing now is nothing?
I hated it. I mean, I remember being a teenager. I mean, I was lean and mean back then, being literally on my hands and knees at the ends of rows of green beans. I despised doing it. I was like, gosh, this is slave labor, really. I mean, it's just pouring sweat. It's hot, bugs all over you. You're dirty. And then now, I mean, I dress in a jacket and stuff like that. I just don't. It's almost a different world from the way I was raised. So yeah, I mean, it is different.
Now, is there anything that you think of from any, and of course we'll get into the last segment about words of wisdom and stuff, but is there any one or two things that point at, when you think back to your childhood, you think about your upbringing, your originate, or how you came up, anything that any stories anything that comes to mind that you'd like to tell or share?
I mean, some of the things that shaped me a lot, I think, in doing what I've done and what I do now, there's a common thread there. And that was just really, I watched my parents. They owned businesses, grocery stores, my grandparents, and on both sides, they dealt with people all the time. That was a common thread. And I grew up, my sister's very different. She was so bashful and backwards or whatever, and she's older than I am. I was always that kid that they would send into the store, to ask questions or whatever, because I was never afraid to talk to people. And if I look back on my life, and even at now, no real specific instance, but I really just was raised communicating with people and dealing with them. And it was I was always in some sort of a service type role. And even to this day, I still view what I do as that. And so, both my upbringing, really, if I could distill it to one thing, I would say that it's given me a servant's heart, really. So,
and that's a genesis for being able to relate to a lot of people. I think we have that in common, whether you're, Ned off the tractor or Sally, the bank president,
that's
or
right.
whatever. You look somebody in the eye and you have the conversation with them. And
I'm no better than the least of us. I mean, I put my pants on the same way. I eat the same way. I still do those things. When I shed this jacket, or when I go home from work, what gives me, and we may touch that, but what gives me a lot of joy is doing stuff outside. So that's still in me, raising things and being able to produce stuff and give to people and that sort of thing. So I think that's important, is that you can don't just take. There's plenty to take in life, but that you can give something as well.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think I'm just, if so there's anything that works in this, I think just really one of the things that's probably a good tie-in, and then we'll take our first break, is, if you could have a coffee, anybody in the, history, anybody at all that you could just, have a cup of coffee with, sit down and, just have a good conversation. Anybody come to mind?
Well, there's one that I'm not sure that they drank coffee back then, but outside of Jesus Christ, really, that would be my first choice. But if we were going back in time, and there was a figure that would be second, I guess, would be George Washington. And it was just that I've always thought George Washington, number one, was not the best by all standards in history. Was not the best general, in the British forces back in jolly old England. He was not viewed as some mastermind, military mind. He was, I think, even his family was not viewed as being very, steeped in aristocracy, and he would have been considered a traitor, and was, in fact. So failure for him meant death, and he was dealt a hand that, by and large, were farmers and lawyers and school teachers and people like that. He was going to fight one of the world's largest and most well-organized and well-equipped armies in the world. And so it seemed like an untenable task, but he was steadfast with it and just kept working, just kept going after, kept his eye on the ball, as we say now. So it would be great to be able to pick his brain, just see what inspired him, what he relied on, what things that he did, because it undoubtedly had to be very taxing on him, mentally, emotionally, physically. I mean, those were hard scrabble times. I mean, didn't have the air conditioner or the heater very much, food was short, money was tight, in fact, non-existent at times. So much different times, but it would just be fascinating to hear, how he did it and why. So I think that would be my second choice.
Good stuff, buddy. That's good stuff. Hey, Kelly Tanner, you guys are getting just a little bit of a taste of why I'm super excited about having this guy in today, and we'll take our first break, and thank you guys, and we'll be right back. Hey folks, I'm so excited to bring to you our Homes and Loans podcast series. It's something near and dear to my heart. I know it's going to make a positive impact in your life and someone that you know and care about. I encourage you to share this series with anyone that fits that description. I had the vision of bringing together like-minded people that are positive, that are forced for good, not evil, in different industries, different arenas of business, whether it's educators, entrepreneurs, attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, real estate professionals, and of course, mortgage professionals and beyond. This is just an amazing series. It's going to make a difference. And the idea is that we bring these folks together so that you can enjoy it and get something out of it. And we have 3 basic segments as our format. The first segment is where someone's from. Where were they born, and maybe some childhood memories that they carry to this day. Number 2, their business, how you might be able to reach them, maybe some tips and tricks that gives you a glimpse behind the curtain in what they do that can help you. And of course, how you reach them. And the third, I'm really excited about, because that's where the gold nuggets come in. Those nuggets that we all call on to get through adversity. We all face adversity. And we always ask the question, hey, how do you balance your professional and personal life? And we even ask a question, who would you have coffee with? Some historical figure. But
main crux of it is, how do we get through adversity? How do you look at the glass half full and not half empty? And so many other things. So we encourage you to share this. You can go to homesandloanspodcast.com. That's A-N-D spelled out. Homesandloanspodcast.com. And you can see the whole series. Man, we hope you enjoy it. Share this with someone you care about. It's going to be great.
Their driver's license, and do you wait on the police? Do you, talk about a little bit about that, some of the tips for that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's a very common facet of law. In fact, that probably makes half my practice. Folks coming to me that have been, had a car wreck, somebody's run into them, or many times really hurt them, and they come to me asking questions or needing help. Really, in law, the only way that the legal system has of providing redress to someone, making them whole, as we like to say, as lawyers like to say, is with money. And I mean, it's a sad fact that that's all we can do. But once you're hurt in something like that, there's no doctor that can really put you back to the way you were before. They can fix you if they're good enough, and we hope they are, and we hope that you don't get, God forbid, die in something like that. But that happens too. So when you encounter one of those things, you're driving and someone crashes into you. We call them accidents. You hear them called accidents. Well, it's really not, because it's a purposeful act that someone has taken, a path or a course of action they've taken, excuse me, that has resulted basically in their negligence. They're going too fast, they're playing on their phone, and they're distracted some other way, or even talking on the telephone. And all of us are fallible in that sense. So we sort of gloss over the fact we're operating a 2, 3, 4,000 pound machine, or bigger with some of these light duty trucks, even like I've got 8,000 pounds. So you should never. The threshold in the state of Tennessee is $400 in damage. You're required to make a police report, a crash report. $400 is, basically a dent on your bumper now. I mean,
Right.
With the way inflation and prices are, $400 is nothing. So I would say always have law enforcement respond, make the report. That's going to be really your best record of what's happened.
So somebody pulled over. Here's my license. I gotta go. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
You're.
I would say, hold on, buddy. We need to make a police report here. I realize you may be in a hurry, but that's changed now.
Right.
My car's tore up. I'm hurt, and particularly, obviously, if you're hurt, you want to get help.
Right.
There,
and I guess depending on your state of mind and the health of your end, whether you ask for witnesses or whatever, that's going to.
Well, yeah, in law enforcement, that's another thing too. Generally a Samaritan, if they're kind enough, some people don't want to get involved, which is unfortunate these days. But generally, you will almost always see on crash reports that there's a witness listed. Someone has told law enforcement, "Hey, I saw this." Kelly had the green light, and the other person had the red light. So those things are very important. And I guess we get into the part where, what do I do if I'm hurt? What steps do I take? Well, number one, come and see me once you get treatment. Get to where you're not in peril, and then call. I get you into the office, and typically what I'll do is ask them what happened, and then I will take the role of a plaintiff's lawyer. Plaintiff is someone who is really, in layman's terms, that's the person who's been wronged. If you are on the other side, have the unfortunate position of actually hitting someone else and injuring them, or just damaging their car or property or whatever, then you are what's called, in legal parlance, a defendant. And your insurance company would provide you defense in the form of an attorney, up to the level, now don't make any mistake here, up to the level of your insurance coverage, okay? So there's a lot of things that play in there, and your insurance coverage also, the levels and what we call the policy limits, also helps from a plaintiff's perspective too, because let's face it, a lot of people out here aren't responsible. So if they run over you and they don't have any insurance, then what I do as a plaintiff's lawyer is I have to turn to your insurance and a facet of it that's called the uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, and I can recover for you on your behalf out of that. So it's important to make sure we don't really want to just keep the minimums. Okay, even if we think we're a great driver, there's other reasons why we would want to raise those policy limits up.
Gotcha. And I think one of the advantages, of course, we'll segue to the criminal side, but one of the advantages of representing someone, those of you that are out there and, excuse me, those of you that have a need, you actually can represent them without money up front. Your agreement is to take a percentage of what you win from them. So you literally are on their side with their team.
Yes, and that is many times that's a reassuring aspect for a potential client when they come in. They may not have access to justice. They may not be as fortunate as some others where they think, gosh, I can't pay a lawyer. You know, I mean, they look at it as just money being thrown away. I take those cases like that, those injury cases, on a contingency basis. And that means I don't recover a penny unless I recover from them, and then I take a percentage. But a good lawyer never lets their client make less than the lawyer does. And there's lots of lawyers out there that can't say that. And I'm not thumping my chest, and I'm not going to name names, but there's plenty out there that will do that.
Let me tell you, just to be very clear, what Mr. Tanner just shared with you is this is the guy you need to talk to, because there's all the underneath, right? There's one thing to the fine print, and there's lots of slip-ins and stuff like that, and you get to the end, and attorney makes more than the client gets taken care of, and that's admirable.
Well, and it's just a perverse outcome, but you hear of tales that like that on, you know, these big cases on television and stuff, and really those class action suits. I mean, maybe the individuals in the class action, we're getting off a little bit away from the car wrecks, but the principle's still the same. The attorney makes millions of dollars, and the poor guy out here that's got cancer from getting some
$10 a piece or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's perverse. I mean, and the same way with car wrecks on a more local and personal scale is when somebody's hurt like that. I've never even you know, if the damages aren't severe, I still try to help people out if they've been hurt. And I've taken cases where settlements have been, you know, as little as $5,000–6,000. That's not a lot of money in the scheme of things, and they're not, you know, severely hurt. But at the same time, those people would not, you know, you go to some of these bigger firms that advertise on TV a lot, or we get some that come in from, you know, other states and Memphis that are not local folks.
800 numbers.
That's right. And they're not going to take those cases for any cost. So I try my best to try to help those folks too that would otherwise be denied access to justice that way.
Well, I mean, it's a big deal, right? So that's a big part. Let's shift gears, because one thing that I know you're very, very good at, and having obviously law enforcement experience, you know how to represent someone that, you know, hey, bad things happen to good people.
Oh, that's right.
And, you know, whether that's momentary, didn't think straight through everything. We've all got the, you know, crazy cousins or uncles or friends or something that they just do something bad, whether it be, you know, DUI, you know, fit of rage, you know, pull a gun, do, you know, all the bad, right? Talk a little bit about that. I know that's a big Pandora's box there, but maybe just touch on that, because there's probably somebody out there that has a friend or family member, someone they're in trouble, Kelly. And of course, you're licensed in Tennessee.
Yes.
One of the few, I understand that even right down to a death row case, you have the ability to to try those, which puts you in a whole other class. But just if you took a 40,000-foot flyover, maybe give everybody some insight to maybe some things they need to know. Something like that happens.
Well, you got to keep this in mind too. It's easy to sit back and be enraged at some of the stuff that goes on in society today. That's a fact. Okay, there's bad people that do bad things. There's also good people that do bad things, and I've seen both, as you pointed out. Most times, these problems, they are mistakes, whether they're done purposefully or not. They're mistakes, a lapse in judgment, something driven by emotion, anxiety, stress, whatever. People react in a variety of ways, and sometimes it's not always the smartest way. So in those instances, what you're doing, I've had people, even family members, that's asked me, well, you're a police officer. How can you do this? And I said, that's right, I was a police officer. And my number one duty as a police officer, and when I wore those hats, was to uphold the Constitution, not only of this state of Tennessee, but the United States. So everyone, including the least of us, is entitled to at least have their rights properly represented and defended. That's what makes this country the greatest country in the world. Okay, not every country's that way. If you've ever been to any other country outside of this, there's a handful or more that you are not afforded the same rights as you are in the United States. So that's really the crux of it, is making sure that people are treated fairly, they're not run over, and you want to, in candor, you're working to mitigate the impact on their life. Sometimes it can be as common as, let's say, a driving under the influence, a DUI. Very common case. I do a lot of those. Most of those really stem from a momentary lapse of judgment. And I say momentary, over a period of several hours. It's very easy in having a good time at a picnic or a barbecue to consume more alcohol than you really think about. Sometimes they're depressed and they're self-medicating with things, and there's an argument there. If you're an adult and you want to do that at home and sit there, and even something as controversial as using drugs, which I don't condone or advocate, but if you want to do that inside your house, really what you're harming is yourself primarily. But when you get behind the wheel of a car, you've got that, kind of goes back to those car accidents, car crashes, we call them accidents. But you're driving a 3, 4, 10,000 pound vehicle around that can really hurt or kill somebody. So you've got to be very careful about what you do there. And there's steps too, in defending those. There's a process that I go through, and I won't bore your audience with all of those, but there's a way that I dissect those cases. And really it's from a law enforcement perspective, so that I know I'm looking for things in there. Well, was this person treated right? And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean, so polite that they're yes ma'aming and no ma'aming from a law enforcement officer. There's good and bad there too. Largely good, but there are some that are a little bit gruff and not as personable, but it transcends that. Were they doing things the right way?
Right.
And or did they do something that this person kind of fell prey to through ignorance? And that's not a bad thing. They just don't know, and they did something, or they were led down this pathway to do something that basically incriminates them. So those are all things that, I've represented cases from somebody caught with a little bit of marijuana, which is another controversial topic in the United States right now, as you know. Some states have legalized it, some have decriminalized it in certain amounts, and generally I can say it's probably on the same level as alcohol now, from a legal standpoint. I've represented those cases, to DUIs, the domestic violence situations where those are pretty much generally some of them are systemic, but generally they're, kind of the heat of the moment thing, man or woman, or two women or two men or family members, mothers and fathers and children get into an argument and it gets out of hand, all the way up to murders and attempted murders. So again, you see bad people that do bad stuff, and you also see some good people that do some bad things, make some bad choices.
So the key is get great advice.
That's right.
From somebody who knows what they're doing,
And don't wait.
Don't wait.
Don't wait. I mean, when these things happen, I can't overstate that. Even with
Don't wait. Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean, you're generally, it's like us. We're making this podcast, right? You're also, when you have encounters with law enforcement, you're performing for an audience later. And most people, or
that's a gold nugget. You might want to repeat that.
You think that you think everyone knows that, but the reality is, when you're let's take the DUI as an example. When you're performing those field sobriety tests, which you're under no obligation to do legally, by the way, you're performing on video for an audience to dissect everything you're doing and everything you're saying.
And how you're saying it.
And how you're saying it. If you get a little bit mush-mouthed, the more you talk, the worse it gets. So you sound intoxicated, and a lot of people don't know they're being asked to do these field sobriety tests. They don't know the background and the science behind those. That, for instance, if you're over 60 or if you're overweight, they're not accurate. And many people feel that they have to do those. And you may encounter officers or state troopers out there that said, "All right, Mr. Riddick, you're going to do these tests now." Well, you're not under a legal obligation to do those. So if you find yourself in those situations, silence is golden. It don't mean you have to be a jerk to the people. If they ask you your name and stuff like that, they're going to find out.
Well, now, one thing I know, you got a great website, and I've really enjoyed looking. Getting ready for you to come in. There's a lot of great resource there. I know you give some good insight through there, and a lot of great testimonials and things from folks that you've helped. Is the initial consult? Is it true when they say where the initial consult for attorney is a no charge, or is there?
Oh yeah, I never charge for that. The only thing that I've had to start charging a consult for recently is the divorce cases. And the only reason of that, and here's what I do, I charge a $300 consult fee. And not to get into the weeds too much here, but I got to finding out that a lot of people were coming and seeing me and telling me about their case, whether it's their husband or wife or whatnot, with no intentions of ever retaining me. It was just to conflict me out so that I couldn't represent their spouse. So I've had that happen on a number of occasions. And so what I do is I say, yeah, well, Lauren, if you're wanting to talk to me about a divorce, it's $300 consult fee. If you hire me, it goes toward your retainer.
Right.
So you don't lose anything if you're going to hire me, but none of the other stuff I ever charge.
And how would someone reach out to you, Kelly? How would they get in front of you? Just everybody's got their unique situation, and I'll encourage you. How can they reach you? How's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is just to call. I'm really easily accessible. Like I said, rightly or wrongly, I internalize these cases that people bring to me because I know it's their life. So you can call me. My office number is 865-200-8538. You can contact
865-200-8538. Okay.
You can contact me through my website at kellytannerlaw.com. Kelly. I only have one E in my first name. That was a source of lots of fisticuffs growing up, but not the E, but just you've got a girl's name. So funny how we do silly stuff.
Hey, well, my name's Lauren, so I can't say that.
Yeah, we're cut from the same cloth. Right?
There you go.
No, but I'm very easily accessible. One thing I pride myself on is when you come to me for a case, it's these two hands that work on it. Now, whether that's good or bad for me may be a different story, but I am not a micromanager, but I don't really want when somebody comes to me, they want to see me show up.
And you just work out of the trunk of your car, don't you? You don't have folks. Let me tell you, Kelly's like I say, wildly successful, does a great job, and he's going to get on to me as soon as we break here. But he has a beautiful, beautiful office building, almost the entire floor, I believe. Bank of America building, as it is, as we're recording this, right over the city county building in or over
Right
in
over the
Knoxville,
river, yeah.
looking right over the river. Beautiful.
Very fortunate to have it. It's a great location.
It's
very
impressive.
convenient.
It's impressive.
And I always hated parking downtown, but we've got a parking garage, so it makes it easy on me to park there.
This has been awesome, man. So KellyTannerLaw.com.
.com.
And you got his phone number there, and we'll be back in just a minute. Awesome.
Hey, folks, I just want to take a moment and thank you for looking at our podcast. I hope you're enjoying it. We truly have enjoyed putting it together for you. And I want to take just a moment to talk about the Lauren Riddick team, Homes and Loans. My mortgage practice has been going around for over 25 years at the time that we're putting this together. And I'm so proud of that. We've been able to help clients and referral partners all over the country. Texas, California, Colorado, Washington State, Florida, everywhere in between. And of course, our beloved home here in the East Tennessee Smoky Mountains area. I love helping our clients. Whether it's a home or a loan, we'd love to help you. Now, my mortgage practice specializes in traditional forward lending, whether you need VA, FHA, rural development, conventional. We absolutely can help you. But I want to take a moment to talk about something near and dear to my heart, the often misunderstood, wildly popular home equity conversion mortgage, reverse mortgage. Now that's available for folks that are 62 years or better, for yourself or someone that you know that you care about and needs to know about this amazing program. Whether you want to use it as a leverage point to give warm-handed gifts instead of cold-handed gifts, live more independently, and make sure that you're not burdening your family, or just put together a line of access that you can use for down the road that has unbelievable benefits. Love to share with you more about this amazing program. And just in short, how cool would it be to have an optional payment that did not have to get paid back until up to 1 year after you pass away, or up to 150 years of age? It'd be pretty cool. Therefore, letting the house owe the debt and not you. It's been over 1 million facilitated since Ronald Reagan got behind it in the late 80s, including my blood parents, Jim and Edmund. Hey, if you want to know more, go to reversewisdom.com. That's reversewisdom.com. There's a lot of good information. Or just reach out. We'd love to share more about this amazing program or some of our more traditional mortgage products. Of course, real estate as well through my lovely office. All right, folks. Hey, we're here with our final segment with my friend Kelly Tanner, attorney Kelly Tanner. Tip the scales in your favor. Is that right?
That's right.
No, just, man, as you guys know, as we've been doing our podcast, the last segment, all of it's great. And what great wisdom you shared today, buddy. I like to get into the gold nuggets of, what helps you get through the rough times. We all have adversity that we have to, go through. The road to success leads right through the dump, and fear is false evidence appearing real, whatever that might be. I want to lead off with, how do you balance your personal and professional? Like me, you're still working on it, man, but tell me, and you kind of alluded to that, you get down the farm and work a little bit, but how do you balance that personal and professional? Because I know you care about your clients and taking care of them and their families, but that comes at a cost. So you got to be at a balance. How do you do that?
That's I'll be honest, that's a tough nut to crack. And it's one, as you said, that you continually try to do. You have to work at that. And I'm not sure that I ever attain it, but I try. And like I said, I do, it's probably a character flaw. I do internalize cases that I work for, people that I handle, and I know how much they're depending on me. I may be a little too accessible, if you ask my wife and my daughters. But a lot of it, like you said, is sometimes you have to, just in old East Tennessee hillbilly parlance, you have to unscrew. Instead of getting screwed up, you have to unscrew. And some of that for me is just being, I have to be outdoors. And there's some peace in being out there and kind of, you know, if you want to be out there pouring sweat in the summertime or in the wintertime outside doing something, it's not a very comfortable place for people to be. So you kind of get to reflect and you have some one-on-one time with your maker, and you know there's beauty in everything, even a rainy day. And if you take time and try to internalize that as much as you do with your career, I think that tends to give you some balance, and that's one place that I don't want to tip the scales. You try to maintain as close to even bubble as you can, and you don't always do it, but you've got to make time for your faith, your family, and have something that where you're still serving. You're just not taking. You get enough stuff given to you, and you can be, you can help somebody and still get. I get a reward out of that too. So I try to do stuff outside, in short, and work around the farm. I'm constantly trying to do foray into something, whether it's chickens or honeybees or raising fruit or whatever. Um, I don't raise livestock because they become pets to me. I just don't think I could, raise something. I'll get my beef at Kroger, but yeah, I mean that. I think you have to find something that gives you some peace and some solitude, and do that, and then enjoy your family too, and above all, spend as much time listening to them as you do listening to other people's problems, because they got problems too, and I reflect back, and one of the things I try to remember, I can't attribute it. I don't remember who said it, but there's an old saying: the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day that you figured out why.
Mm.
And if you can figure that out, then you're that much closer to being on even bubble.
That's good right there, buddy. Uh, what about any words of wisdom that maybe you pull from, parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, anything that comes to mind, or maybe even something that you heard from a mentor or a friend, anything that, like when you got something smacking in your face and you're like, man, I got a little adversity here. Anything that you call on that helps you get through that next day?
Well, maybe not one thing in particular, but I guess, I mean, again, I'll use that word. I've had a pretty eclectic, um, and diverse series of careers, really. I mean, my life has been a book of chapters, really, in what I've done, and frankly, what I may do in the future. I mean, who knows? I don't ever foreclose those possibilities. But anytime that, I'm not one that's big on self pity. Yeah, I have problems just like everybody else. I worry about the same things everybody else does. It's called responsibility and discipline. How you handle that, as you're digging for, is really makes the difference in whether you get over it or under it, whether it crushes you or you kind of stow that away back in that space between your ears and you use it for the next time. But anytime that I think, and I get a little down in the mouth or feeling a little bit run over, it doesn't take me long. I can remember somebody somewhere that, here I am complaining about this, and then you see somebody out here that's lost their legs, or, they're on the street, and their worry is not about, what am I going to do for supper tonight, or whether it's a steak or a chicken or whatever. It's, am I going to eat today? So know that you're fortunate in just waking up, really and truly, the value in that. So that really helps me a lot. I mean, it's just, everybody's fallible to that. getting the blues or worrying over things that really, most of it's out of your control. And you're not accomplishing anything by doing that. The only person you're hurting is yourself, probably your family, because they don't want to see you, you know, in a bad mood or sad or whatever. So just know how fortunate you are just to be here.
Is there a point that you think of that you're thinking, you know what, I went through this adversity. It was, you know, that doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, kind of thing. Is there a pivot point or something that you can reflect back on to where you didn't really say, well, I've made it, you know, I've got, I was able to get through this tough time, but is there something, I don't know if a point where you were proud of it or was there a point that something you can call back on that you had to go through something that you were like, you know what, man, I made it through that and I didn't know that I was going to. Anything that comes to mind?
There's a few things that probably I wouldn't share. Maybe just a little bit too personal, but you know, I had good parents. I was very fortunate there, but I witnessed that same thing with my folks, watching them worry over stuff. You know, everybody thought they've got businesses, you know, they've got plenty of money. Well, that's really not true. I mean, nobody knew what the struggles, and you know, I mean, you got nobody to blame. So I grew up watching all that and watching my mom and dad worry and toil and everything else, and just, you know, seeing that sort of thing is like, I didn't want to do that. Not have to toil. That's not what I'm talking about. I didn't want that worry. So you try to position yourself, but I had a great childhood. I think, you know, you and I have talked about this in the past. We grew up in an awesome era, and I'm really sorry the kids today, you know, kind of that sucks to be you type thing, but I'm really sorry that they didn't get to see some of the stuff and experience the things that we did.
You know, Kelly, it's funny. I haven't talked to you about this, but I had somebody shared this with me, and I believe it was a fruit of one of our guests. But it was when you compare the ass whooping generation versus the timeout generation.
Yeah,
which one's done better?
That's true. You know, we've got a common friend we were talking about off camera there. You know, and you know, I grew up in the sticks. I mean, you better walk it like you talk it. And so I was in fights a lot growing up and things like that. And he's like, you know, we didn't turn out too bad. He said, you know, my mom thought you were going to be a delinquent, you know, like a criminal or a delinquent. And I was like, well, I didn't do anything criminal, did I? And he's like, no, but compared to today, some of the stuff that you see, you know, we just thought that we were mischievous.
Right.
But, you know, and I reflect on that, and I scoffed, you know, when I was a kid. You hear your grandparents and people, oh, that was back in the good old days. And I thought, they're crazy, you know, old folks that are just, you know, living those glory days. And then here I am, nearly 55. I'm saying the same thing. And I think, gosh, how much better was it for, you know, them that I missed out on?
Right.
Know? And I feel like we were in a great era. But yeah, I mean, those things, I didn't really go. There were several things that were break points that were, again, probably maybe a little bit too personal to share with everybody out there. I mean, you know some of them, but I was never abused or anything like that. Lots of people have really long strides that they have to make to come out of stuff, and there's lots of people I've met that I think, wow, you've really done well. You know, you've transcended long odds that may or may not have had anything to do with stuff you've done even as a kid, but you've transcended those and have done really well. Man. And it's not, the measure's not necessarily money,
right?
But they're happy, they have a good, you know, career, can provide for their family, and they're just living a good life.
Oh, man, this has been awesome. Is there any question I haven't asked you that I probably should have, bud?
You know everything about me, but we're afraid to ask.
No. Well, guys, listen, my dear friend, Kelly Tanner, guys, I can tell you, great friend, but, you know, from a professional point of view, you need anything as it relates to representing you and representing a loved one. You'll not find anybody better. And Kelly, thank you for sewing in. I know that you've helped somebody today. There's no telling. That's the one thing about this podcast. It'll long outlive us, so
That's
it's
right.
cool stuff.
I hope so, and I appreciate you inviting me. And again, always, if I can help any of you or you, I'm a phone call away.
Hey, I love you, buddy. It's good to see you.
8 years. I've had my reverse wisdom for about 8 months. Wisdom for 12 years.
12 years.
My reverse wisdom for 3 months.
I've had my reverse wisdom for 4 months.
I guess Lauren about 5 months.
I think it was 2013 or 2014. That'd be what, 11 years? 12 years?
11 years, but Bev, how long have you had your reverse wisdom?
2 years, I think.
I've had my reverse wisdom for 1 year.
Mine for 2 years.
Reverse wisdom for 5 years.
Hi, we're Bev and Fred Wagner. We came to Tennessee about 17 years ago, and Lauren was our go-to guy. He was dependable. He was helpful. He fixed everything. He was awesome to us, and we have been with Lauren for 17 years. In the last couple of years, we realized that we could get involved with this reverse mortgage, and we've been very happy about it. With our extra money, just last year we celebrated our 50th anniversary and went to Alaska without the financial worry of it, and it's been awesome. And Lauren's been awesome. We love them. So we encourage you to all come aboard.
Okay, I'm Jerry St. Clair. I've had a reverse for about 10 years, me and my wife Mercy. It was one of the best things we ever did. Lauren and his team are great to work with. We've been able to live in our dream house for all these years because of this reverse, and I would do it all over again. Thanks.